And on Purim, it's a special commandment to give gifts to the poor. Matanot Le'evyonim. We can't possibly enjoy the holiday if poor people don't have enough. There's a very beautiful custom about giving charity on Purim. It's not just about making sure that others have the wherewithal to celebrate. When we come to synagogue to hear the reading of the Scroll of Esther, we are expected to contribute 3 half coins. Why a half coin? This symbolizes the half shekel that every member of the community was expected to contribute for the upkeep of the temple in Jerusalem. But why does the Torah specify a half shekel instead of a whole? The answer is that by giving a half shekel, we realize that we'll never be complete on our own. Judaism is a faith for community, not just for individuals. Accordingly, Jewish law states that everyone, rich or poor, contributes the same amount, teaching that every Jew is equally important. And sometimes it's through our enemies, as on Purim, that we come to realize that every one of us is integral to the Jewish people. The half shekel also shows that we're not complete as individuals unless we belong to the community. And a community should belong to the worldwide community of human beings who care for each other.
Esther plays her part in the Purim story. We never know when something that happens in our own lives is an opportunity to make a difference. I'm here with Harvey and Joanne Caras. They are the co-hosts of the JLTV show Meals and Miracles. And we're going to hear a little bit about how they have stepped up and taken their own Esther role forward. Thanks for sitting down with us.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
You told me some time ago about how you had been in Jerusalem with your son, who was then a rabbinical student, and he took you to, what was it, a soup kitchen?
Yes, a soup kitchen, 72 Agrippus, Karma Hayir. And I didn't know it was a soup kitchen. We sat down, we placed our order, and as they were bringing the food to us, my son said, "This is Karma Hayir, a soup kitchen where my wife and I are volunteering." And I looked around and I saw soldiers. And you know, in Israel, that means both men and women. I saw business people, I saw families. And I said, "No, this isn't a soup kitchen." He would tell me that they fed 500 poor and hungry Israelis every day. Something happened to me. As I looked around, I wanted to take part in helping to feed hungry people in Israel. So I said, how about if we go back and I will make a project that our family could do to carry on.
And she came home and she told me what she had seen. I wasn't on that trip to Israel. And what really impressed me the most is that Karma Hayir treats everybody with dignity. Nobody knows who paid for their food and who didn't. Those that have money leave tzedakah at the door, and those that don't just leave. So everybody's treated with respect and with dignity. And she came home and she said, "I'm going to raise lots of money for these people because that's the only way they're going to survive." I said, "Well, how are you going to do it?" And my son had suggested we do a cookbook and sell it and use the profits to benefit the soup kitchen, because we had done a small cookbook for our temple once before. But then what happened is, it was Sarah's grandmother, our daughter-in-law's grandmother, passed away, and when we got a note about it, she was a Holocaust survivor, the only one from her family to survive. So Joanne said, "That's it. Why don't we take recipes from Holocaust survivors and tell their stories and create a cookbook that way, and we'll sell it to benefit the soup kitchen."
And we collected the stories from every continent in the world.
Yeah, and it's been wonderful. And then what happened is Joanne started giving speeches all over the world. And as she would give speeches, people would come up to us and say, "Why don't you do a second book? Because my grandmother, my grandfather were survivors. I'd like to honor them." And we were in Canada, and a woman came up to her, a young woman, and she said, "This is my bubby. And I was hoping that if she met you, she would tell her story to you." And so what happened? She told her story.
She told her story for the first time before leaving this world without sharing it. I cried, you cried, her granddaughter cried, she cried. And we got in the car, and my husband said, "So what's the name of our second book going to be?" And Miracles and Meals at that moment would come alive, and we collected another 115 stories from places like Cuba that we didn't even, know that the stories had reached, and the survivors would share them with us. So.
It seems kind of curious that you'd have stories about survivors when the predominant experience of individuals, especially Jews, who survived the war, survived often starving.
Yes.
Yeah. And the common denominator of every story that we ever received is that they starved. If they made it through the miracle of them surviving, the malnutrition, the starving, and making food for their family as they grew and became mothers and bubbies and fathers and uncles was shared with love. When you purchase our book, every penny goes back to feed hungry people today and tomorrow and the next day. When we started our project, the Soup Kitchen Karma Ha'ir was feeding 500 meals a day. They are now feeding 1,200 meals every single day.
Well, thank you kindly for making that effort. It's a very beautiful effort, and it's hoped that others will take up your project or find a way to do the same in feeding the hungry, making sure that others have what they have, and helping remember the legacy of those who lived through starvation.